All right. Good morning. We're going to call today's Housing, Urban Development, and Zoning Committee meeting to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Cone. Present. Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Present.
Alderwoman Keys. Vice Chair Sonnier.
Present.
Alderman Browning.
Present.
Alderman Aldridge.
Here.
Chair ClarkHubbard.
Here.
Alderwoman Keys.
Everybody got all these.
We have 6 present. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and accept a motion to approve the minutes from Tuesday, June 17th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
It was moved by Vice Chair Sonnier and seconded by Alderman Aldridge that we approve the minutes from Tuesday, June 17th, 2025. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Schweitzer. Alderwoman Keys. Vice Chair Sonnier.
Aye.
Alderman Browning.
Aye.
Alderman Aldridge.
Aye.
Chair ClarkHubbard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Keys. We have 6 aye votes.
That's the number.
All right, with that, we've successfully approved the minutes from June 17th, 2025. We'll move forward in the agenda and recognize Alderwoman Velazquez on Board Bill 18.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the HUD Committee. I'm here to talk about Board Bill 18, which is modifying and updating interior requirements for properties. So basically, it's really 2 parts. The first part is, I think most of the people on this committee voted for in favor of the rental registry bill last session and what that does. So in that process, the interior requirements, like the safety requirements such as walls, ceilings, and doors being in conditions, plumbing working properly, ceilings being 7 feet high, et cetera, all those interior requirements were included in Exhibit A, but they weren't actually codified in the bill. So this bill codifies those, so we don't have to refer people to Exhibit A of an amendment or of an ordinance when they have questions about what building inspectors look for when they're doing interior inspections. And then the second part of this bill is essentially making it more family-friendly and friendlier for non-traditional families, particularly multi-generational families, families that may have small children. So we're not changing the current occupancy rules when it comes to the square footage of space. Each person will still have at least 150 feet of square space. Bedrooms must be at least 70 square feet. What does change is that the main bedroom or the master bedroom no longer has to be the biggest, which is in the old occupancy requirements. The limit of 2 people in the main bedroom is removed. And then children under 6 years old won't count towards the total number of people. And again, in this conversation that we've had in the city of how do we bring more people and increase our population, and we've seen data and statistics that, one, this is a bill that supports immigrant families, and they were one of the populations that cut back on the population loss. 2, we talk a lot about wanting to make St. Louis a family-friendly city, and this is one way to do that by basically updating our code and making it, modernizing it to adjust to different kinds of families, like multi-generational families, like families that may have several small children. Those are the real key pieces and the key parts of this legislation. A question that you may have is how will the city determine ages of children when enforcing occupancy limits? And that is up to the discretion of city code enforcement officers and building inspectors, and I have Commissioner Ware here from the building to testify. They will determine whether further investigation needs to happen or determine whether they'll use their judgment to continue to determine the number of children. So those are really the 2 key pieces of this. It's pretty straightforward. It codifies Exhibit A. It changes some of the kind of antiquated requirements for non-traditional families that we may think about. It does not do anything for occupancy limits for short-term rentals. It does not touch that at all. And it does follow in line other cities who've done similar things, such as San Francisco, Ann Arbor, Michigan, and Seattle. So Casey Milberg from the mayor's office should be online to testify. And I have Commissioner Ware here from the building division. The mayor's office does support the bill, as does the president's office. So with that, I will pass it over to Commissioner Ware, and I guess we can do questions after the mayor's office and the building division speaks.
Good morning. Good morning. The building division, I'm so sorry, doesn't see.
Mr. Ware, could you please speak into the mic?
Oh, absolutely. I'm usually so loud, I don't use a mic. The building division doesn't see any huge issues with amending Exhibit A in the existing Housing Conservation Code itself. The only real changes that has occurred is the limitation on the master bedroom to no more than 2 people, whereas now it's just going to be based on the square footage. Some of these master bedrooms are huge. And previously, we did not count any child 30 months or younger, and this has been moved up to 6 years. All of the other important code public safety issues with the smoke detectors and the means of egress and the structural issues and all the mechanical, electrical, and everything else that we're concerned about is still current and in place. So we don't see a dramatic change in the bill. It's just a little bit of a tweaking of sorts. So that is our view on this, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Commissioner Ware.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Milberg hasn't come online yet.
Okay.
Good morning, members of the HUD's committee. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I'm Gilberto Pinella, Director of the Office of New Americans for Mayor Kara Spencer. And since Casey is not able to be here at the moment, I'm just going to offer a few words. The Board Bill 18 has the support of the Mayor's office, as you already know, the President of the Board, and the Building Division, as well as the Office of New Americans, which is a new office here in the city. The bill is designed to provide clarity on the city's interior housing standard and also an update to support the ability of families, especially large ones, to find housing in the city. The bill came because an idea or because of the need from welcome neighbors to be able to accommodate to large families that are coming into the city, looking at the city to build their lives as they resettle, and they just need a moment of opportunity to be able to establish themselves here, and then they'll move on. They don't want to live their whole lives in a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment. They want to be able to have the opportunity to establish themselves and then find that American dream that we all are looking for. So this bill does exactly that. It gives at least the families that we represent, the immigrant families, the opportunity to come to St. Louis to look for adequate housing with the support of the organizations that are working on resettling them, and then have the opportunity to establish themselves and begin a life here in St. Louis instead of thinking about moving to other areas like South County or St. Charles County. So thank you for the opportunity, and I welcome any questions.
Chair ClarkHubbard. Ms. Milberg's online now.
All right, we can go ahead and move to her.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, first of all, thank you, Hilberto, and thank you to all of you for the time that you are taking to consider this piece of legislation. Board Bill 18 is a bill that has been worked on in partnership with the bill sponsor, with the building division and the mayor's office for several months, in partnership, of course, with the Office of New Americans. It's designed to provide some clarity on the city's interior housing standards and also provides a small, but what we think is hopefully also meaningful ability to support families, especially our large ones, and their ability to find housing within the city. The bill addresses an unintentional oversight made during the 2023-2024 rental registry update. That was in Board Bill 180, currently Ordinance Number 71835. As part of that, a really important set of rules was placed in Exhibit A rather than placing them within the actual text of the code. So this bill corrects that and does place those within the code. It's a best practice. It makes it easy for the public to find that. So that's one piece of this legislation. And then the next piece is that the bill provides an update to make it easier for families in the city, especially growing families, to find housing that fits their need. The new rules proposed in this legislation streamline those requirements in a way that is easier for most people to understand. The main bedroom, master bedroom, no longer has to be the biggest room. The limit of 2 people in the main bedroom is removed. And then children under the age of 6 years old will not count towards the total number of people. The change is being made again because the city wants to attract and keep families, particularly larger ones. We know that right now many big families are not able to identify homes that they can afford under our current code. So these changes, though small, will make it easier for families to find housing that meets their needs. And we do have a language within this ordinance, proposed ordinance as well, to make sure that it is that this is specific to families, people related to each other. The building division has been very supportive throughout this process. They've reviewed the changes, confirmed that they meet safety standards, and they've also really importantly confirmed that they're easy to implement through the city's existing code enforcement activities. That's really important. We think a lot in our city and in the administration about, do we have capacity to do this? It's no secret that as a city, we're working to recruit and retain, more workforce. And so having them communicate that, yes, this is easy to implement through the existing code enforcement process. It's not it doesn't require additional staff. It's not a huge lift. It's something that's very helpful to hear. Currently, city code enforcement officers use their judgment to determine whether there are infants or toddlers, that's children under the age of 2, living within a unit. If a unit appears overcrowded at the time of a building inspection, that code enforcement officer is able to submit a notice of violation. There's an existing appeals process already during which the owner of a building can submit supporting information saying, this resident has provided this information indicating that these children are related, proof of age, things like that. So these are all processes the city already has in place currently. And those were all part of the considerations that we took into account while we were working in partnership with the building division, with the board president's office, and with the bill sponsor, and with a lot of other stakeholders to shape this legislation. So we are very supportive of it and would ask for favorable consideration of this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, members of the committee. With that, I'm open for any questions, especially now since we have Commissioner Ware and Ms. with us.
Okay. So those are all of your speakers?
Those are all my, yes.
Okay. Did you want us to hear from the public first, or you want to go ahead with questions? What do you guys? Okay,
Up to you.
we do like hearing from the public.
Sure.
So everybody that's here that signed up to speak on Board Bill 18, can you raise your right hand?
No one signed up.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go forward with questions. We'll start with Alderman Cone.
Thank you. Mr. Ware, if you could join us.
Yes, sir, Alderman.
Thank you. I don't think it's any secret that I continually stress that the building division is woefully and inadequately staffed. And from my perspective and my experience, and this is not a reflection upon you, you're still relatively new in your role, but is it still the case that the building division is not doing citywide inspections on every property for code violations?
We are performing all the housing conservation inspections that come in.
Correct.
That part we are
The
doing.
only time a property is inspected in the city is whether there's a permit pulled or a complaint made against that property. The city is not proactively evaluating properties for code violations.
That would be correct, yes. As far as block-to-block surveys that we did some time ago, that has been put on a back burner until we get fully staffed again. You are correct on that, sir.
So the city's still not inspecting code violations unless it is reported or there is a permit pulled for that property. And some would argue that even when permits are pulled, the properties are not properly inspected. That's not a matter of debate.
I'd have to be defensive to my inspection staff when a permit is pulled or if they respond to a complaint. I am under the strong assumption that they are doing the job they're supposed to do, sir. I won't say that every individual inside my department meets all of my personal expectations. I'm not that naive about it, but at the same time, I think they perform their duties as best they can. Anytime they're pulled to a particular target address through permit application or a complaint or a referral from any other agency performing jurisdictional cooperation, they do the best they can to perform their duties.
Just from an overcrowding perspective, I appreciate you brought the data here. I just requested the last few years. It looks like you went all the way back to 2018. In terms of these are just the complaints that the building division has received for overcrowding. And it looks like just kind of going through the last, several years here, there's never been a year where we've had more than 100 complaints for overcrowding. And it appears as though there have actually been no actions or adverse actions on occupants with respect to overcrowding. Is that
that
correct?
Is the information that was supplied to me through the current system that we have on collecting data. We've got a list of violations that were notices of violations issued for overcrowding in 2024. I have 19 separate addresses in front of me at this point in time, just for last year. It appears that 25% of them were issued notices of violations and fined. 23% were repeats of buildings that were already under notice. 22% had no evidence of the violation itself. There are some instances, and the percentages are low, where the inspector cannot get inside. We have legal limitations on forcing entry. So these are the realistic current data that's in front of us. I mean, it's something we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. We do get a substantial amount of requests through CSB and through phone calls, and referrals made from other members of the Board of Aldermen, as well as the police and fire department, health department. A lot of the data is not in the system because it doesn't come through CSB. Unfortunately, they're phone calls. So it's just unfortunately part of the reality of how these complaints do come into the department. So.
How would the city be able to track the age of occupants within any particular dwelling unit?
Well, and you know as well as I do, it's up to observation and the discretion of the code enforcement official who's out there. It's the same situation when we try to establish if a child is 30 months or less. They'll do the same thing on the child's age being 6 years or less. A lot of it's through observation. We don't have a investigative means to track things through any agencies or anything like that, but that's the reality of that situation.
So, you know, I'm a little flabbergasted when I hear that the building division has the capacity to take on or enforce something when we aren't actively enforcing many of the codes that are on our books right now. That's always just a general concern of mine until we actually start adequately staffing our building department. And if we're not able to ascertain the age of occupants, how would we allow an unlimited number underneath a certain age?
Well, just being truthful with you, Alderman, I cannot guarantee we can ascertain the age of a child. As far as manpower inside the department, we're still performing the same inspection. The same inspections being performed. The only two changes in the housing conservation inspection is the limitation of just 2 only in the master bedroom and the age limitation of the children inside the family of being raised from 30 months to 6. But the same safety inspection is being performed by the same people.
Would you agree that there's a difference in size between a child that is 30 months and a child that is 6 years old?
Well, of course I would.
Is there a difference?
I just want to jump in, Alderman. So I think, yes, it is a challenge. I think one of the things that we want to be mindful of in this and with particular families that may be affected is we had concerns about the potential for raising the expense associated with different documentation for children, right? And that some of these, during the complaint process, the verification would naturally arise through that. And I just want to point out in the sheet that I gave you, and I think I'd emailed this to you a couple weeks ago, everybody has to just reiterate what Commissioner Ware said. There were outcomes to overcrowding. In the 100, in all the calls for service, and my data set's a little bit different because my data set that you have over there is 2019 and 2024, not 2018, so that's not included in here. But from last year, we had 25% that there were issued notices of violations or fines. As Commissioner Ware already said, 23% were repeats. So there were adverse outcomes when some of these were reported. So
I just want to point out, we're talking 23%. There's literally less than 100 complaints in any given year. So 23% of 100, and I'm being generous, is 23. And we're talking about 23 action items against thousands of households in the city of St. Louis. That is a minuscule number of actions being taken. In addition, and
I would say that the data, based on the data I have,
Alderwoman,
there's 114 calls for service, and 83 of those are for
questioning the
overcrowding.
building commissioner. I appreciate you providing your additional information, but I was questioning the building commissioner.
Sure, I just wanted to clarify things and make sure that we understood what data set that we were looking at.
Getting back to my line of questioning, Commissioner, so there's a difference in size between a 30-month-old person and a 6-year-old person, correct?
Absolutely, sir.
And if the building division is unable to ascertain ages of young people that are in a household, what prevents a mixed family, non-immigrant refugee, from having a blended family with 4 kids on one side, 3 kids on the other, moving into a 1-bedroom shotgun, 600 square foot apartment?
Well, to be honest, Alderman, we even have difficulty. We don't know if a child is 2.5 years old or 3.5 years. I mean, that's the reality of trying to substantiate a age based on observation. That's it is difficult. You know me for a long time. I'm very honest, and yes, that's true. It is a challenge for us.
So essentially, there's really not a way. The point of my questioning here is that, one, this is very limited in terms of the impact that occurs with the number of violations that are issued by the city. The concern that I have is that bad actors in the city, a nefarious landlord, there are several that come to mind that I have to deal with, or their properties every single week. And they will take advantage of this to overcrowd and manipulate the caps that the city has in place to benefit them and profit them, while creating health and safety issues for the families that are living in those properties and for the neighbors who are around there. I don't think that anyone believes that having 9 people in a 600 square foot 1-bedroom shotgun apartment is a healthy living environment. Just from using the facilities, the bathroom alone would be problematic. So, let alone the trash and everything else that would come out of a household of that size living in a 600 square foot 1-bedroom shotgun. I have very serious concerns that this is almost akin to tenement housing that we would be sanctioning, particularly for those nefarious landlords. And I see, Officer McLaughlin is here. I know he's very intimately involved in the nuisance property process as well. But this is a very strong concern of mine, that this would create a lot of headaches for neighbors. And as we're talking about recruiting families into our city, providing quality housing for people, this doesn't seem to address that. It provides an opening for people, because the city's not enforcing it currently on the scale that would be keeping or preventing people from moving into the city. If someone rents an apartment, Ed, respectfully, there's a property 3 doors down from me, 4660 Tennessee Avenue, owned by Mo Freedom LLC. I'm not going to mention the name of the landlord. That has not had an occupancy inspection on it since 2014. It has had at least 5 different occupants in that 11-year span, at least. I've met them. I generally greet them when they move into the property to warn them about the bug infestation, the mold, the rats that are in that property, so that they're eyes wide open as they're moving in. There's hardly any inspections. It's been reported multiple times by myself and neighbors. And the previous tenant, who I haven't seen her or her children for many months now, it's a supposedly 3-bedroom house. That's debatable, but she had 5 or 6 kids, at any given time with her. And they never even had an occupancy inspection.
Well,
That's remarkable to me that we're talking about increasing occupancy loads, and we have properties that have not had an occupancy inspection in 11 years and have had multiple tenants during that time.
And I would like to follow up on that particular address and find out.
It's just one example.
Reason. I know, sir, but as you brought that to me, it's my responsibility, my moral and legal responsibility to follow up on that. I have to follow up on that. I have
Please
to figure
do,
out why.
but it's just one example. I have dozens and dozens of these examples, potentially even hundreds if I really put my mind to it.
Okay.
Throughout just my ward alone. So I think that these types of policies really adversely impact communities of color. They'll adversely impact impoverished communities where 70% of the properties are owned by investors, and some of those investors, not a majority of them, but some of them are certainly acting in bad faith, and they are manipulating systems. And we are creating a policy that's going to allow them to further manipulate that. And I find it very disingenuous that this is being touted as something to benefit our immigrant communities when, in fact, it could actually harm them.
I respect your opinion, sir.
That's all my questioning. Thank you.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time here today and the discussion of this bill, and all the people who took time to send in their letters of support regarding especially the immigrant community getting a little bit more space for their family, or a little bit more room in the bill, if you will, in the code for fitting their our units in the city. Oftentimes, if I ever reach out about overcrowding, and I don't see anything in Ward 1 in the last year, but it's less about children in the property and more about a large number of adults in the property, especially related to, people will suspect drug sales or different issues of crime occurring, and they'll reach out, and that'll be one of the tools in the toolbox. Does this bill change that at all for how many adults are allowed in any amount of amount of space?
Only on the part about limiting the master bedroom to 2. It could very well, if it's a large master bedroom, the occupant load may increase by 1 or 2. I don't know.
But it doesn't
These
change
are hypotheticals.
the square footage allowed. So
Square footage allowed is still the same. Everything's still the same.
So to Alderman Cohn's example, you have a 600 square foot one bedroom unit. How many adults are allowed in that unit, and does it change between this board bill and our current code?
It does not. It's still the same square footage calculation.
Okay. Regarding overcrowding, is it often that this is something that ends up being cited for when you're doing other types of inspections, or other sort of complaints?
Yes, it can. And an example would be if they're out there responding to an electrical or a plumbing code violation, if those inspectors see something that alerts them, they'll make a referral to the building division, who will in turn go out and do that. So that does happen, yes, ma'am.
And you said that's not reflected in the numbers that we have in front of us, or it is?
It is not. It's still the same. It's still the same habitable gross area of 150 square feet for the first occupant and an additional 100 square feet for each additional occupant. The square footage requirements, it's either or. They can also set an occupant load based on sleeping rooms, which is essentially 70 square feet for the first occupant and 50 square feet for each additional occupant. None of that has changed. None of the life safety issues have changed. None of the limitations on people trying to put bedrooms in basements, none of that has changed.
Right.
None of it. None of it's changed on the ceiling height. None of that has been altered in this bill. None of it. There's only 2 things that has been adjusted, and that's the age of a child and the square footage of a master bedroom. That's all.
Okay, thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you.
Alderman Brownie.
Thank you. I just want to get more people in this city. I just want us to gain population. I just want us to have some place where people feel like they can raise their family and start a life. And I want to make sure that we have safe housing for them to do it in. I appreciate the building division's efforts in trying to make sure that we keep our housing safe and habitable and in a condition that we can grow our city. But let's be honest, we're not building enough housing in this city to grow our population. We are not building enough housing in our city to grow our population. Population is shrinking, and so is our housing supply. So I don't know what we think is going to happen if we keep everything the same and just hope that magically we'll grow population. Where are people going to live if we don't provide more places for people to live? So I am absolutely in support of this bill. I appreciate Alderwoman Velazquez for bringing this forward, and the support of the Office of the New Americans, and the support of the Building Division, and the support of all the people here today that are in support of this bill, as well as the numerous emails I received in support. I did not have time to respond to everyone, but please know that I hear you, and I absolutely want to make sure that we pass this bill, because I think if we're going to claim to be a city that wants to grow, we have to be open to growing, and that means welcoming people to our city. So thank you, and I don't have any questions.
Okay. Alderwoman Keys.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I can actually look at this from a different perspective. I'm one of 12 children. I know what it's like to share a bedroom with, siblings. In my ward, I know that we have people who are living in less than optimal situations. And I think I mentioned this when we were talking about the Rams interest application, that oftentimes we have situations where, let's say somebody has an apartment, but their sibling and their kids got kicked out, and they all end up in the same place. It's not necessarily intentional, but life kind of threw a curveball, whether it's losing a job or, something that was going on. In my ward right now, and I became aware of this as we moved through the process of this tornado recovery, a young woman who was living in a rented house, just her and her 5 children, but the landlord has never had that property inspected because he kept the utilities in his name. It never triggered an inspection. The house has mold, not storm damaged, and there are a lot of other things that are going on. I don't know that this is necessarily something that we really can truly legislate, because we don't know who's moving in and out of where. Because again, family situations, they change. Friend situations, they change. As a former child abuse investigator, we knew that we had people who were, stacking up in housing, but they had nowhere else to go. So this is one of those situations. It's just a bad situation. I am supportive of people being able to have housing, and I do agree with the alderman of the 9th Ward that we do need more housing for people. But all of those things will take time, and it is a process. So that's the end of my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman Keys. Alderman Aldridge.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. First to Director Edward, thank you for being here. Thank the Mayor's Office and the Alderwoman for bringing this legislation forward, and to all of the individuals who have sent emails in support for various reasons. I definitely, I hear you, I see it. I am in support of the legislation, and I do support it. I think it's always, we pass bills down here at the board. It's kind of our job. And as this is, being broadcast as live, also want to be clear that, I hear some of the concerns from the alderman from the third, because I have had situations in my ward where, like Alderwoman Key said, people moving in and out is flexible. You may have a cousin or auntie with 2 kids, who's been evicted and they got to move in with their family, and we definitely want them to, have housing. Sometimes you have people that take advantage of that is not good neighbors and not good individuals to the community. And I don't want to say good as if they're bad, but they're maybe not respectful to the conditions that they are in. So also understand that while we need housing, I want to be clear, I think this is a step forward to making sure that people can have a roof over their head, even though I really doubt that the building commission will have the ability to, go house to house, especially right now where we're tornado recovery and there's some other prior, more important things to make sure that certain folks' homes and codes are up to par. But I think housing is going to take more than just this legislation. It's going to be a long haul, and I think this is a good step forward. But we're talking about reducing crime. We're making sure that our school system is a school system where people want to move into, where neighborhoods are safe. And while I think this is a good step forward, I just want to caution us that this isn't going to, start to change the direction of the city when it comes to housing. That is a long haul, but I do think this is a good piece of legislation, and it'll be interesting to see how, once passed, I think the difficulty we have with most departments is enforcement. Our job is to pass the legislation and hope departments enforce it. But ultimately, I will be in support of the legislation today, and I appreciate the Alderwoman for trying to think of a solution to keep people in housing, as those can be interesting as people moving in and out with family members.
Thank you, Alderman Aldridge. Vice Chair Sonnier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to just thank Daniela or the Alderwoman Velazquez, for all of her work on the legislation and on the bill. To me, I think this serves as another example of why it's really important that you're here and why it matters that we have someone that's part of the immigrant and international community that is a part of the legislative process. I have seen many instances. The International Institute is in the 7th Ward, and you just have families. They just got here. They just got here. They don't have. The parents barely have the basics. Some of the things that are required for them. Some of the children, often when they come here, they have 3 or 4 children. Sometimes they come here, they got 4 generations. It's the grandparents, it's the parents, it's the next children. There might even be a great grandparent, because just the cultures are a little bit different. And I have seen people struggle to find places where all these individuals to go. And unfortunately, the option that would make you compliant with the code would require that you break up with your family. But I've seen that, in other cultures, it's just very common that you have 4 generations in a household. That's just, that's normal for them where they come from. And so it's kind of a culture shock, and it's different to find, that compliance there in that way. I've seen it happen. The Micah Project is also in the 7th Ward. Like, I've seen people struggle with this and haven't really been clear on what can be done. So I think that it's, again, just really important that you're here. And I really appreciate Commissioner Ware for, the building division and your staff for working on this legislation and supporting it. I also want to add that I've seen recently, since the tornado, there are some families who are looking to relocate. And I have seen, again, cases where, like Alderwoman Key said, there was a lot of individuals living in a home that their family has owned for a long time. They're all looking to relocate. How are they going to find a place to relocate and, again, be compliant with the code? Like, I've observed this tension many times. And obviously, in my role, I'm never going to encourage someone to not comply, but I'm also, I don't like seeing the families kind of having to split. And I think especially when it comes to children, making sure that under all costs, children can stay with their families and that they can stay with those who brought them here, like that makes sense to me. I don't think it is usually children that are causing the issues when it comes to nuisance and problem properties. I don't think children and families who are settling should have to pay for negligent landlords and property owners who don't do what they're supposed to do. And I think our job is to try to find that balance. So I think that, this legislation aims to do that. And I also think, it's just hard to see things if you're not in that type of things. I know in my community, African American community, it is common. Sometimes a lot of folks do stay at grandma's house while you're in transition and you're looking for somewhere to go. That might not be compliant for the code, but that's just very normal. If you lose housing, you're probably going to go stay like with your grandma or someone in the family. I've had to do it before. We weren't, it might be an uncle, it might be an aunt, maybe many of us, and then I see similar things. So, I do support this legislation. I had some questions that I've actually already had the chance to speak to the Alderwoman of the 6th about and gotten clarity on. And I think just in reference to the understaffing of the building division, I think we talk about the building division a lot and a lot of the struggles and a lot of the challenges of you all being understaffed. And I understand that it's a struggle that every department is struggling with, and hopefully we can continue conversations on how to do that. I do think, to Alderman Cohn's point, it definitely would be ideal for us to get to a point of proactive inspections, and I do think it is important to consider doing that while we make these changes, but I don't think we should not make these changes to make things better, to make people be able to find the housing that they need, to help form a pipeline for compliancy with our codes. I don't think we should not do that because we haven't yet figured out how to get all of the staffing up in the building division when we know that there are many people, again, we could count the people who come there to the International Institute, and again, we're only counting people we know. The truth is, what do you do for a kid with no paperwork? Like there's so much nuances into it, and so I think doing some of these things and again, being sensitive to what immigrants and international community is going to. A lot of the folks I encounter, I had an instance today where there was a shooting that I represent, and the member did not even want to talk to police. Like, there's a lot of fear. They want as least interaction with any authority that is official with the city as possible because of what's going on in our larger climate. So I think it's just important to keep all of these things in context, and I do support this bill, and I would actually like to be added as co-sponsor.
You.
I'd also like to be added as a co-sponsor.
So noted.
Please add me as a co-sponsor as well. Thank you.
So noted.
Me as well, thank you.
So noted.
All right, with that, we welcome Alderwoman Velazquez to close.
Thank you again, Commissioner Ware, members of the committee, and Madam Chair. With that, I would ask for your favorable consideration for a due pass recommendation for Board Bill 18.
I move that we pass Board Bill 18 out with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
It was moved by Alderman Browning and seconded by Vice Chair Sonnier that we pass Board Bill 18 with a due pass recommendation. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Cohn.
No.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Aye. Alderwoman Keys.
Aye.
Vice Chair Sonnier. Aye. Alderman Browning.
Aye.
Alderman Aldridge.
Aye.
Alderwoman ClarkHubbard. I'm sorry, Vice Chair ClarkHubbard.
Aye.
We have 6 aye votes, 1 no vote.
All right, with that, congratulations. You have successfully passed Board Bill 18.
Thank you, members of the committee.
Thank you. Okay, so today, for reasons out of our control, we are going to have to take a recess for Alderman Cohn to hold a separate committee. I apologize for the people that were here engaged for the 11 o'clock meeting, but as soon as that meeting adjourns, we will come back to HUDs to hear Board Bills 45, 44, and 47. So with that, STLTV, if we can go ahead and recess.
I'll make a motion that we recess until after Transportation and Commerce Committee.
Second.
It was moved by Alderman Aldridge and seconded by Vice Chair Sonnier that we go on recess. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we are in recess. All right, good afternoon. We're going to call this afternoon's meeting for Housing, Urban Development and Zoning Committee back to order. I'm going to pass the mic over to Vice Chair Sonnier.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. You're to speak to Board Bill number 44.
All right. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Madam Clerk, can you read the summary for Board Bill 44?
Board Bill 44 is introduced by Alderwoman Shameem Hubbard, co-sponsored President Megan Green. An ordinance directing the Neighborhood Stabilization Division to establish a registration process and registration database for registered and neighborhood organizations of the City of St. Louis and establishing eligibility criteria for neighborhood organizations, applicants, and including a severability clause.
Thank you. So with me today, in the interest of time, I first want to say thank you for the patience of the speakers who came today, the speakers that were online. We did lose some people, but they wanted to submit written testimony in the interim, just to make sure that their voices were heard. The opportunity to pick up this baton and carry this work for these grassroots organizers and community leaders that have been doing this work since before COVID, meeting and getting this work coming down to fruition now, has been very exciting. And I thank them for the trust in me to be able to carry and help them carry this through for our residents. To be clear, this is for our residents. So with that, I'm going to start with the speakers. If there's anyone here or online that hasn't signed up, please do, because we absolutely want to hear from you. I'm going to bring Ms. Dana Malcolms up, and when you come up, if you can just, after you get sworn in, announce where you are. She's my speaker, and then we'll go into public comment.
Thank you, Ms. Dana. You can raise your right hand.
Sure.
Do you promise that what you're about to say is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, and just state your name, your ward, or if you live in a city or your organization, what ward it's in 3 minutes.
Sure. My name is Dana Malkus. I am in Ward 6, I think, and I teach at St. Louis University Law School. I'm here today really in my capacity as the facilitator of a working group convened by the St. Louis Vacancy Collaborative. The collaborative is really premised on the idea that residents and private side stakeholders and public side stakeholders have to work together towards solutions. And back when the Vacancy Collaborative came together in 2018, one of the things that became clear right away is that we need to find ways to support and strengthen neighborhood organizations, because they're really a key player in fighting vacancy. And more broadly, we know that neighborhoods are stronger when they are organized to address common problems, advocate, and so eventually a working group made up of neighborhood residents, organizations that work with neighborhoods, and people who work for various city agencies started working together to try to think about specific ways we could better support neighborhood organizations in St. Louis. And as part of that work, the group researched approaches in other cities, met with neighborhood groups, held several focus groups, presented at a SLACO neighborhood conference, met with city agencies in an effort to find an agency that would be a good fit for providing more support, and continue to collect feedback and iterate ideas. As we talked to neighborhood groups, one theme that emerged was that having easier and consistent access to information about things affecting their neighborhood would actually help them be more effective. Another theme that emerged as we talked to residents was that groups don't always know about each other. Residents don't always know about groups in their geographic area or how to become a leader within an existing group. And some neighborhoods have overlapping groups while others don't have a group at all. The working group eventually concluded that a simple registry of active neighborhood groups paired with a more systematic approach to notifying those groups about decisions affecting their neighborhood would be one way to better support neighborhoods. It's not the only way, of course, and it's only one incremental step toward a stronger system. More is certainly needed, and this bill is only to address one piece of the puzzle. The group considered several ideas for how such a registry would work. It ultimately landed on trying to keep the process simple and straightforward, both to make administration manageable for NSD and to encourage civic-focused neighborhood organizations to register. The registry can be accomplished with existing NSD resources. It's really designed to do 4 things to strengthen neighborhoods. First, it provides a mechanism for voluntary registration and annual renewal so that the information in the registry remains accurate and available to everyone. Registered groups directly receive copies of certain public notices that are relevant to their geographic area. There's no funding tied to being a registered group. It provides a public registry so that it's easier to see the locations and basic information about each group, increasing opportunities for groups to work together and avoid duplication of efforts, as well as providing a common starting place for engagement by city agencies and others who are seeking neighborhood input. And third, it uses simple eligibility criteria designed to increase the likelihood that residents within the group's boundaries know about it and can meaningfully participate in it, and that it represents the geography it serves. There were several iterations of this aspect as the working group tried to find the right balance of having some standards without being overly prescriptive or creating a registry that was too time-consuming or difficult to administer. For example, the criteria leave latitude for groups to operate with their own norms as to membership, decision-making, and leadership, as long as those norms are transparent in some kind of publicly available written document. The majority of their members live in the geography, and the group covers a reasonable area. So for some groups, this might mean formal registration with the state and bylaws and C3 status, but for other groups, it might be as simple as a very short constitution or other document that just sets out their purpose and basic operation for an unincorporated association. And finally, it requires that city agencies consult the registry and include RNOs in community engagement activities. RNOs are not the exclusive means of engagement, of course, just intended to be a starting place. I will stop there and ask what questions I can answer for you.
We will, does anyone on the committee have questions? Okay, I see Alderwoman Schweitzer, so we'll just go in seniority order. I just do, I want to take questions from the committee, but I do want to be mindful of the folks who have been waiting since early this morning to give public comment. So I'm happy to go through, but I would really like to get to public comment and then back to questions. You guys are okay with that? Okay, thank you.
All right. Next, I'll bring up Peter Hoffman to speak. And then we can also then go through the list of people that are on.
Thank you, Alderwoman. Good afternoon now. Committee members, Madam Vice Chair. My name is Peter Hoffman. I manage the Neighborhood Advocacy Program for the nonprofit Legal Services of Eastern Missouri, which is located in the 14th Ward. I am a resident of the 6th Ward. Our program provides free legal assistance to dozens of city neighborhood associations and community development corporations. I am here to speak in support of Board Bills 44 and 45. I believe the proposed legislation has 2 main benefits. First, there are now many gaps in the fabric of community organizations serving our city neighborhoods. Some neighborhoods have very strong neighborhood groups, others have none. Knowing where these groups exist can be the first step in providing increased resources, support, services to those neighborhoods like those provided by my office. Second, the expanded and targeted notice will be available to neighborhood groups under this proposed legislation will lead to more informed and engaged citizenry, On more occasions than I can count, a neighborhood has sought the assistance of our program because they've been confronted by a development proposal that is objectively harmful for the community, for which there is little to no community support. Liquor stores, pawn shops, gas stations, by an example. These particular uses have profound negative effects on the people who live nearby. Yes, the law already provides some posting and notice requirements to affected residents, but sometimes these notices don't reach the entire community. They blow away in bad weather, or they're taken down by a bad actor who doesn't want to have community input around a particular proposal. This just adds an additional layer of notice through a recognized neighborhood organization that can promote a more proactive conversation between residents and developers and help ensure the communities are informed of their democratic right to participate in public hearings. While the benefits of the current framework are somewhat limited, this is a cornerstone on which the city can build towards more inclusive and transparent governance and more robust and engaged citizenry. Again, I ask the committee vote to pass Board Bills 44 and 45. Thank you.
Do you have another speaker, Chairwoman?
From here, we'll just go through with the list in person and then the ones that are online.
Okay, thank you. So, Madam Clerk, we can call
swear me in. Okay, so there's people online already. I moved them over, and there's 2 people in the Kennedy room signed up.
Okay, maybe the first person in the Kennedy room can come up.
Keith Crawford.
Hi, Mr. Crawford, just state your, well, you can raise your hand.
Good afternoon.
Raise your hand so I can swear you in. Do you promise that what you're about to say is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you, and you may proceed and just state your name and your ward of residence.
My name's Keith Crawford. I'm a resident of the 13th Ward.
Speak into the mic if you can so the folks online can hear you. Or you can take it off if you need to.
Okay, my name is Keith Crawford, and I'm a resident of the 13th Ward. I'm president of the North Point Neighborhood Association, a tax-exempt 501c3 Missouri corporation established to serve the North Point neighborhood within the boundaries defined by the city's Planning and Design Agency. We were incorporated in 2019, just in time to be shut down by the COVID pandemic. We're making progress, but still recovering from being isolated that extended period of time. The emphasis of the North Point Neighborhood Association is to help maintain neighborhood properties, help restore the ones which have fallen into disrepair. There are only around 6 LRA-owned lots in North Point, and we hope to have those redeveloped. Prior to the incorporation of the North Point Neighborhood Association, this wonderful neighborhood had never had a resident-led organization working on behalf of the community. The only groups that existed were tied to elected officials and seemed primarily interested in elective office politics. Although we maintain contact with and cooperate with our elected officials, North Point Neighborhood Association does not involve itself in elective politics, with the exception of ballot issues concerning civic involvement. When the board bills before this committee are passed into law, the notices provided for in the bills will give us tools we can use to elevate our efforts to improve the neighborhood. At present, our alderperson and neighborhood manager provide us with notice of some permit activity and proposed development, but that is somewhat limited. Having a recognized neighborhood organization will encourage more residents to become involved without their having to despair of being tied to one elected official or another. A few neighborhoods have independent organizations working in their communities, but not enough of them. In the reorganization and reduction of wards in this, North Point is part of the new 13th Ward, and our present alderperson is Pamela Boyd. The area of the ward stretches from beyond I-270 on the north all the way to Page Boulevard on the south, and generally from the city limit to Union Boulevard. That's a lot of territory for one person to cover, even with the additional staff provided in ward reorganization. When Alderwoman Boyd last attended one of our organization's monthly meetings, we pledged to help her by at least trying to keep on top of the neighborhood and infrastructure issues in North Point. The legislation you are considering today will greatly assist us in attending to our issues and to keep that pledge we made, which was as much for ourselves as for the alderperson. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Keith. We can go to someone online.
Henry Brown.
Is there someone online? Or are you still working on moving them over?
Let me do the ones in here first.
Okay.
Do I need to do anything?
Swear you in. Do you promise that what you're about to say is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. You may proceed. Just state your name and ward of residence.
Okay, my name's Henry Brown, and I live in Ward 7. I'm sorry, I'm nervous. I made some notes, but I'm going to repeat some of what Keith and Peter said, but I'll try and add extra things. So, first of all, I was a neighborhood improvement specialist for a little over a year, and now I work for SLDC. I am not speaking on behalf of either of those organizations. I'm here as a private citizen and part of Dana's working group. So, although my NIS experiences inform what I'm going to say today. So we all know there's a lot of inequity that Peter alluded to between different neighborhood organizations in the city of St. Louis. I'm supporting this bill because I think it's going to help lift up the neighborhood organizations that don't benefit from the personal relationships with politicians and city employees that other neighborhoods benefit from. Because I think we all know in the city of St. Louis, a lot of times the best way to get something done is call someone in a position of power who you can help you out. And not all neighborhoods have that access level. On the other side, I think there's a lot of bodies in the government that want to engage better with communities, but really don't always know who to engage with, because there are 79 neighborhoods in the city of St. Louis, and there are more than 79 neighborhood organizations. When I was a neighborhood improvement specialist, other agencies regularly reached out to us for our updated contact information. So I think there's a really an appetite for better engagement with community groups. I think this bill, the requirements are very narrowly tailored so that the maximum number of community groups can be included, while at the same time making sure that those community groups do represent the neighborhoods that they allege to serve. So sorry, I'm getting lost. This is so scary.
You're doing great.
Thank you, everybody. The methods of the requirements, including an identified area, a method of public engagement, governance, and regular meetings. It really assures the other residents in those neighborhoods, but also the city agencies who want to interact with these groups, that those groups do actually represent as much of the neighborhood as they reasonably can. And I think that will encourage other residents to get involved with their neighborhood associations and also encourage government agencies to engage with these groups. Like Dana alluded to, I don't think this is going to solve kind of all the disparity between groups, but I think it's a really valuable first step towards building stronger systems. And it's something that we can continue to build upon and down the road. That's most of what I had to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Carla Reed online.
Hi, Ms. Reed.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Thank you. Just
Can
raise
you
your
hear me?
hand so I can swear you in. Do you promise that what you're about to say is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And just state your name and ward of residence, and you may proceed.
My name is Carla Reed, and I reside in the 13th Ward.
Thank you. You can begin your testimony now.
So my background says United Way, but I'm not here on behalf of them. That is my employer. I currently serve my community in two capacities. One as a co-facilitator for the Neighborhood Leadership Fellows through the Upsall Extension. And then secondly, I serve as the president of the Mark Twain Neighborhood Association, which is in the 13th Ward as well. I am here to vote for this board 44 and 45 for two reasons. The two things that stand out to me is the opportunity to understand who the leaders are around me, as well as being able to receive public notice from the city of St. Louis. And I'll give you a few examples of that. Just recently, I have been working to connect with the leadership around me, and the neighborhoods around me consist of Walnut Park, Dayton, as well as the North Point neighborhoods. Now, organically, we've been able to connect, and hopefully we'll do some things in the future. However, it would have been a much easier process for me if I was able to go into a database or a system and find that information a little bit more easier. Secondly, I just want to lift up the public notices and how important that is to be able to receive those directly from the city and have a repository where that information is held. I know being a new leader is very hard to ensure that you are getting all the things done. And I know that my neighborhood manager, Chevette Wayne, has taken an effort to assist me in being effective and efficient in his work. And one of the things that she has done for me is to let me know when there are any notices, especially with zoning, that is happening in my neighborhood, to the extent that she'll send me an email or even place it on my calendar if it is something that is the last minute. And so with her doing that, I'm able to hop on and I'm able to lend my voice. I will say on two occasions, her doing that has been extremely effective in me being able to vote against some things that me and my neighbors would not have wanted to happen, right? And the only way I would have known that I knew that that meeting was happening was that communication from her. So being able to have a space where that information is held and can be announced in one place where I can go to would be very beneficial for the work that we're doing in Mark Twain. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Reed.
Sue.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Constance. May you raise your right hand? Do you promise that what you're about to say is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. And just state your name and ward of residence.
My name is Constance Sue. I am a resident of Ward 7. I have the privilege of also serving as the Executive Director of the North Newstead Association. We are a CDC serving North St. Louis City for the last 32 years. I also serve on the board of the Community Builders Network and the newly formed Brickline North CDC. I'm here to testify today in support of Board Bills 44 and 45. North Newstead Association supports this legislation because we believe a thoroughly implemented R&O system managed through the Neighborhood Stabilization Division will improve and expand opportunities for intentional and proactive community engagement by city agencies. As the CDC is serving much of North St. Louis City, we understand how important it is for both residents and organizations to know which groups are active and credible within a given neighborhood. This registry will help us identify partners, coordinate outreach, and increase participation across the board. While the city already posts public notices, that information can be difficult to find and easy to miss. The R&O system will not replace existing methods of communication, but will work to enhance them, creating a more direct, organized, and inclusive approach to sharing information with groups we already know are working towards community betterment. Any voices from the community that may not meet the eligibility requirements set forth by the R&O registration process will still be able to access notices via the means that exist now. The R&O system will just help identify these groups who need and want to build their capacity to eventually participate more fully and get them connected to existing resources in order for them to do so. It can also work to empower individuals and smaller groups to work together to amplify their voices and to build community power as it increases the visibility between existing groups. One of the key reasons that North Newstead Association joined that working group that helped shape Board Bills 44 and 45 was our ongoing confusion when we witnessed when the city and LRA instituted their requirement for a letter of support from community as part of the new purchase process. Too often, the word and the term community is left undefined. This leads to individuals speaking on behalf of entire neighborhoods without broad input or accountability. The formal RNO system will help ensure a more representative and transparent process when community input is needed. It would also create a legitimate avenue for accountability of both private entities looking to invest in neighborhoods as well as public initiatives that tout community engagement, as a paper trail of community engagement can then be traced. In a city where turnover is high and access to information is often based on personal connections, this system is a step towards fairness. It creates a more level playing field for neighborhood voices to be heard and for decisions to reflect the true interests of community. We urge you to support Board Bills 44 and 45 and take this important step towards more inclusive, accountable, and informed community engagement in St. Louis. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jim?
Hello?
We can hear you, but we can't see you. Are you able to cut your camera on?
I believe my sound is on.
Your camera, we can't see you. We can
Oh,
hear
I'm
you, but we
sorry.
can't see you.
I'm sorry. Hold on. There we go.
Thank you. And just raise your right hand. And do you promise that what you're about to say is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And just state your name and ward of residence. And you have 3 minutes.
I am James Dwyer, and I'm a resident of the 9th Ward. Some of you may think of me as a representative of the Neighborhoods Alliance. I have spoken before a number of aldermanic committees in that capacity. I want to offer a disclaimer today. Because of insufficient time to go through our normal procedure of vetting issues and arriving at a consensus on a point of view, we have not, I am not here to represent the Neighborhoods Alliance in its entirety. I am here as a member of the steering committee of the Neighborhoods Alliance, and we have conferred extensively on these two board bills. We have also sent out a memorandum to the members of the Alliance in support of Board Bills 44 and 45. We are in favor of enhanced transparency and information exchange and the prospect of greater citizen engagement, therefore supportive of the intent of the proposed legislation with one caveat. That is that we recommend consideration of expanding the eligibility criteria for registered groups to include SIDs and SBDs, both of which serve the interests of citizens and their neighborhoods, and often have resources that can be brought to bear on topics of interest to the broader community. And that concludes my testimony.
Matt O'Leary.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but we can't see you. I think your camera is off.
Says you cannot start your video because it's disabled by the host. All right, the host has asked you. Thank you.
Thank you. Raise your right
Good
hand.
afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. My name is Matt O'Leary. I am the Executive Director of the Washington Avenue Corridor Community Improvement District, which represents—
Mr. O'Leary, can you raise your hand so I can get you sworn in?
Sorry.
Thank you. And do you promise that what you're about to say is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. 3 minutes. Just state your name and ward of residence. You may proceed.
Thank you. My name is Matt O'Leary, Executive Director of the Washington Avenue Corridor SID that represents the 8th and 14th wards. I'm a founding member and on the steering committee of the St. Louis Neighborhoods Alliance, along with Mr. Dwyer, and I'm here speaking in that capacity. Alderwoman ClarkHubbard provided the Alliance copies of the proposed bills and asked for our participation in this process, which we appreciate. Speaking for me as an executive director and member of the Alliance, my overwhelming sentiment is I generally love these board bills. One of the biggest problems that I run into on a daily basis in performing my job duties is the lack of transparency by certain city agencies that frustrate the ability of organizations like mine to perform their duties. Board bills 44 and 45 are very important steps in the right direction, and I applaud Alderwoman ClarkHubbard for leading on this issue. My biggest concerns with these bills is that they're not expansive enough. For instance, the community improvement district that I lead would not be eligible to receive notices under these board bills as written, as would many important neighborhood organizations that are affiliated with the Alliance to do crucial work in the city. The Neighborhoods Alliance would like to work with Ms. Malkus's working groups, Alderwoman ClarkHubbard, and the HUD's committee to refine these bills to make them even more positively impactful than they already are. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Rhonda Jones.
Hello.
Hi, Ms. Jones. Do you promise that what you're about to say is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And you are safe. We want to make sure you're, not driving or anything. We can come back to you if you.
No, I'm sitting in the car. I'm not moving.
Thank you.
I was just waiting on my time. Thank you so much for the invitation to speak. I'd like to thank Alderwoman Shameem ClarkHubbard for introducing Board Bill 44 and 45. I am the president of the Academy Sherman Park Neighborhood Association, and I have been the president since September 24. Our association has been in effect since 1999. As a new president, I think these bills will be very helpful in communicating to inform those people that don't have network and connection, as some of the other speakers have mentioned. Also, the opportunity to learn about businesses coming into the neighborhood and other information is invaluable. In my neighborhood, we were able to prevent a pawn shop from being opened on Kings Highway and Page across from the check cashing place. Our neighborhood felt that we had enough of that type of traffic and business and was able to influence the permit processing on that type of business. We also had an alderman previously who forbid any liquor licenses. So that was something that we needed at that time, which has been overturned to allow for new development. But this bill will help us on the inside of the community know what's going on outside of and inside of our community. So we at Academy Sherman Park stand in support and want to thank all of you who are also in support. And that's really everybody else has already given the other bullet points that were very important to me. So in view of time, I shall say thank you.
Thank you. Tony Smith.
Hello.
Hi, Ms. Smith. Do you promise that what you're about to say is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Just state your name and ward of residence in 3 minutes.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tony Smith. I'm a resident of the 10th Ward, and I live in the West End neighborhood. I'm here to support Board Bill 44 and 45. Anything that can help residents be more knowledgeable about what is happening in our neighborhoods is a good thing. Instead of finding out things too late or by chance, this registry will help trusted neighborhood groups spread the word. I have one incident to share about a person who bought a building several years ago in our neighborhood. She started off saying it would be a place for families to gather after funerals. But in further discussions, she said she was going to get her liquor license and stay open till past midnight. We only found out about this because a group of us were on another call to support another neighborhood, actually the Academy neighborhood, with something that they didn't want. We saw this property on the agenda and we were able to reach out to our alder, who was then able to call in to say that the person had to speak to the Neighborhood Development Review Committee first. So I'm also the president of the board for Del Mar Main Street. We focus on economic development along the corridor from the city limit to Taylor. And so we are part of 8 neighborhoods. This registry will allow us to, one, reach out to residents and neighborhood associations, know who we're supposed to reach out to when development happens or is about to happen, events are happening along Del Mar, and people will also know to reach out to us. Thank you.
Our final speaker, Audrey Ellerman.
Hello.
Thank you, Ms. Elman. Do you promise that what you're about to say is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Excellent. Just state your name and ward of residence, and you may proceed.
Okay, my name is Audrey Ellerman. I am in the 11th Ward. I am also president of our Covenant Blue Grand Center Neighborhood Association, which has been in existence for about 4 years. I am also the president of the Brickline North CDC, and I do support Board Bill 44 and 45. I believe this will provide the neighborhood the clear information on zoning and development, while also giving them a stronger voice in planning and improving communication, better coordination with all city departments that affect the neighborhoods. The legislation, formalizes a process that took several years and involved multiple contacts with various NIS, neighborhood managers, allowing us to navigate. We are pleased to report that we receive this kind of information regularly from the city divisions and have established good partnerships with the current alderperson, Laura Keys, our neighborhood manager, Melissa Garcia, and our neighborhood improvement specialist, Max. I believe the registered neighborhood organization program will ensure that the level of communication will continue even as we have changes in leadership or with changes in city personnel. One thing we would like to see added to the distribution of neighborhood notices is a facilitation of several communication and neighborhood advocacy with city services such as forestry and the refuse department, as well as representatives of utilities within the neighborhood, which is affected by disruption in service or street closures. I appreciate you taking the time. I thank you very much, Alderwoman ClarkHubbard, for introducing this bill and giving me the opportunity to speak.
That was our last speaker.
All right. Thank you to everyone who hung in there and spoke. We have, again, written testimony from people that were here earlier that came. I'll just speak briefly to a couple of things in addition to the gratitude. I just want to make sure that we don't overthink definitions and words, right? So the definition of a neighborhood organization in here is a resident-led, nonpartisan civic group formed for the purpose of collectively addressing common issues and interests. So just because you don't have organization in your name does not mean that you're not eligible for this. And when I look at the criteria and I think about the just even the SBDs for one of the ones I have in my ward, they absolutely meet the eligibility in here. All of the eligibility requirements that are stated here in this legislation. So I think not to confuse people, because there's nothing in the bill that says SIDS and SBDs cannot be a part of this by name. But I think we do need to look at it case by case, maybe how SIDS run and how they run themselves, or an individual SBD, and see where their maybe there might be a challenge in here for them and work towards that, but nowhere in this legislation does it say that they're excluded from this legislation and from this notification. And I want to be clear on that. It's a database and a notification process. It's an empowerment tool for our residents and for our neighborhood-led organizations. That's it. It's nothing, it doesn't take away, rather, from the work that an organization that might not even want to register for this, they might want to go on the same way they've been going on. It doesn't take away from them because this is public information, but what it does do is empower them with this tool that maybe they don't have the capacity now, or maybe they can grow into the capacity, and then they'll be able to engage and look up a database or registry to see who else is working and doing great things in the neighborhood, and they can work together. So that's what this is. And again, I don't want to overthink or overtalk and confuse people with what it is and what it might be or not be. This is a database and a registration and a tool for them to be able to receive this information directly to them. It doesn't stop anyone else from getting it, and it doesn't stop any other groups from getting it if they choose not to register. A lot of thought and intentionality went into this so that it could be as inclusive as possible. And they went across the board on how many things that they wanted to take away to make sure that they weren't barriers for people. And most of the things happened from lived experiences from our residents. So out of respect for them, again, I wanted to make sure I noted that, and I'll be open to any questions, myself or Dana, or if you have any questions that we can address on anyone else's behalf as well.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. We will go through the committee in seniority order. Alderman Cone.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thanks. So we're just doing Board Bill 44 questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, so thank you for this and all of the work that's gone into it. Clearly, there's been a lot of thought that's been put into this, and also making it fairly simple as well, which I appreciate. So one of the things that I wanted to ask about, you covered a little bit, Alderwoman, about SIDs and SBDs. The eligibility requirements note that it would have to be an elected board, which SBDs have all appointed boards, so they wouldn't qualify under that. And as well as SIDs, residents from which geographic boundaries represent the majority of its membership. The SIDs in my ward are often businesses within the geographic boundaries on the board, not residents. So I don't have an amendment today, and I wouldn't want to present an amendment without talking to the working group, but I do think there's room, perhaps at perfection, to offer an amendment for the eligibility that specifically allows those groups to register, because they would not qualify based on this eligibility. I understand that they could still access the information, and a lot of groups do access the information through their alderperson or neighborhood manager, as previously discussed. But I think this is good to have some explanations of what is a neighborhood group. One of the questions, I sent this to all the neighborhood groups in my ward, and just to get their input. And one of the things that was flagged for me was about the written government documents, governance documents, or documents such as bylaws, constitution, and then as well as the types of elections that occur. I'd love to just hear a little bit more either from you or from the working group as to why that section was included. We do have some smaller neighborhood groups in Ward 1 that are more informal. They do meet, every other requirement, but they would not meet requirement C.
Yeah.
I think they should. I think that'd be better if they did. Maybe this would push them to do that. But I was just interested in why that piece was included in the eligibility requirement.
Well, first I'll go back to a couple of things you said, and then I'll let, again, representation from the working group. But I do know that one of those things that you just mentioned as it relates to building capacity is the work that they want to do. And so if there is a group out there that just doesn't have the capacity to sit down and write bylaws, and we're not talking about, you don't need a lawyer to do that. You just sit down and say, this is the mission of our group. This is what we want to do. It could be a one-pager. and it can be presented on their behalf. As it relates to a SID, if it's a commercial district and it's for a business, that's not a resident-led. So that would be their disqualification. And then as for the board, the members are appointed, but the boards and their leadership positions in the boards, from the ones that I've seen, which is why I said it's tricky to just blanket that, I think we should go case by case on that, is they elect their secretary, they elect their treasurer, they elect their president.
Got it.
And so with that, that would make them eligible.
Got it.
And so I think that we, again, I would be open to that, and if there's something that you want to do, but I don't want to put that in there and then exclude anybody else, again, which is why we just put the resident, again, focusing on the resident-led piece of this tool, of this action that they'll be able to take, and this empowerment that they'll be able to have from this communication, direct communication. But I'll let Dana add to that as well.
It's a great question, thanks. Just wanted to speak briefly to the question of why a written governance document. And like the Alderwoman said, the idea here is that, you know, it can be a very simple governance document. It doesn't need to be 10 pages long. But the idea is to have in written form the basics of the organization's mission and kind of how it operates, partly because I think that what our group talked about is that really helps people who want to get involved. You don't have to kind of know who to ask and say, how does this group work? You know, there's something there to start from, and it also helps the group to function, I think, more, you know, to have a few things in writing. And the idea also is that there is help for groups that, you know, want help putting such a document together, but there's nothing in this legislation that requires that document be overly formal. It simply requires that their process kind of be in writing.
Okay, I really appreciate that, and thank you for that explanation of why an SBD would qualify if they have their leadership structure done and through an election. As long as the leadership structure is done through an election, it doesn't matter that they're appointed. It doesn't have to be the leadership structure, because, you know, a board might be 7 people. As long as within that 7-member board, there's an election that takes place, they would qualify, is what you're saying.
They vote for it, right?
Perfect. Thank you so much for explaining that to me. Let's see if I have any other questions. For the registration every year, is that just for contact information to stay up to date?
I would think it would be not only for contact information, but again, we talked about how people move, you know, if neighborhood organizations change around. And so again, to just make sure that it's most current and accurate as possible, just an update, right? In that part of the process, I think would be good, because we can go on a website, the city website right now, and get very outdated information about not just organizations, but different things, just departments, whatever, all the persons for that matter, you know. So just this is a way to make sure that NSD is able to self-correct even if something is off within a year. I think a year's time is good, because then that also speaks to how many times the organization has met that year. And I would just think that that's just for accuracy, but I don't want to overspeak if the group had another idea. Right.
I'll just add really briefly, yeah, the point of the renewal is mostly to update information related to contacts and how to, you know, maybe some other things have changed, and also to reaffirm that they continue to meet the eligibility requirements, because sometimes groups change their bylaws or the way they operate. So the idea is to make sure that they're still, you know, meeting the eligibility criteria too.
And they're just affirming within their application that they do. There's
Yes.
not like a check or something that occurs.
No.
Okay.
This system is really, again, built to try to be as simple as possible. So if you notice, the eligibility requirements are really more of a yes, no, you know, you have this or you don't. You meet 4 times a year or you don't. Trying to make it as simple as possible for the organizations, and also, frankly, for NSD to be able to administer.
Yeah, I appreciated that about it. I think it's very neatly done, and I appreciate that a lot. So thank you so much for answering my questions.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Keys.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. I have no questions.
Thank you. Alderman Browning.
Thank you, Alderwoman, for bringing this forward. I think this is important for all the reasons stated by the many speakers. When I first got involved in, I don't even want to say politics, I just want to say my community, it was through my neighborhood association. There is nothing more local than your local neighborhood association. And so having that forum for people to receive information, to learn about their community, to give feedback about things is important. It's vital for any democracy. And so I view this in a weird way. This is something about democracy, right? We're trying to make sure that people have a voice, and they cannot have a voice if they do not know about what's happening around them. As for the issue that we've been discussing about CIDs and SBDs, I think there might actually be a more simple solution, and that would be located in Board Bill 45 when we get to it. We could just simply send notices to CIDs and SBDs in addition to registered neighborhood organizations, and I think it could actually be inserted, and we'll get to that when we get to that bill, but I think that would be a pretty easy fix to make sure that they're getting these notices about things that might be happening within their boundaries. Because I do agree it might be an issue for a CID where it's mostly business owners and not residents that make up those organizations. But overall, I think this is a very good thing. I'm very happy to support this. There's a saying that goes, nothing about us without us. And I think this applies in that we want to make sure we're hearing from our residents. These will also help cut down on misinformation because there can be cases where residents will claim to be a greater number than they are, or an organization that really is just two people. And we want to make sure that we're actually hearing from our constituents. And so registered neighborhood organizations are a great way to do that. And it also is a great way for people to get connected with their community. Because I still get to this day, people say, is there a neighborhood association? And I'll say, well, yeah, there is. So we meet every, whatever. But this will help people be aware of where they can get connected. So again, really appreciative of you bringing this forward today.
Thank you. Alderman Aldridge.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Thank you, Alderwoman ClarkHubbard, for bringing Board Bill 44 in front of us, and to the collaborative and everyone who had a role in making this happen. Echoing what the Alderman from the NICE said, neighborhood associations are truly kind of I say I'm the kind of voice for the voiceless, and I think those neighborhood associations, they really stand in the gap for community and do the organizing and do the work, for communities to really be strong and to be able to address some of these needs and bring it to us as alders when we're not, now we have plenty of neighborhoods and we can't be in each neighborhood, and the neighborhood organizations are just doing great work. So I think this is a really good tool that's going to benefit not only the city, but neighborhood associations all across our region. And with that, I would love to be added as a co-sponsor.
Please add me as a co-sponsor as well. Thank you.
So noted. Thank you. I don't want to take up too much space. I like this bill. I feel that, for me, neighborhood organizations are really key and essential for communicating messages and making sure residents are aware of what's happening. I actually require, before I give any support, that people go through the neighborhood organization. Doesn't mean that they have to agree or disagree, but you do have to talk to them and engage with them. And it's just interesting to see the different ways like that kind of has to be completely on the alder to facilitate, because we don't have many things in our city processes that help to require that. So I think this is a great bill. I would love to see a city where every neighborhood has a neighborhood organization. And I think even active neighborhood organizations struggle to make sure the rooms are reflective of the community, that they are, include people of color and younger people and all those things. But I find them to just be essential voices and making sure that residents know what is happening in their community, and even, for me to get a grasp of where people are and how they feel about things. So I would also like to be added as co-sponsor, and I'm gonna go back to Alderwoman Keys.
Thank you so much, Madam Coach. I'd like to move that we.
Second.
Oh, we had a motion of opposition. So do you want to add yourself as a co-sponsor, Alderwoman?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and with that, Alderwoman Clark-Hubbard, you are recognized to close.
Thank you so much, Madam Vice Chair, and thank you all for your comments and your feedback. I will just say, to uplift again the work that's been going on here for, if it's 2025, 5 years, at the table were people that were crying out to be heard, grassroots organizations, neighbors that were waking up to things happening to them and not with them. And so there was no intention to exclude SBDs and SIDs, but I think where the gap comes in there is that most SBDs and SIDs have staff, administration, and people that quite frankly, get paid to do that work, to make sure that they're noticed, to make sure they know what's going on. But our grassroots organizations, our grandmothers and youths and people that just want to be involved in their neighborhoods, they were the ones that were struggling with doing the work and having the time to sit at a computer and comb through websites and try to make sure that they can pick up or not pick up the phone and call somebody to get something done for them. So that's, again, where the work and where the heart of this came from. And I just want to make sure that the speakers today and anyone listening knows that there was no intentional exclusion for them, for SIDs and SBDs. It was just that the idea that they already had that built into their mechanisms and how they work was in the forefront from people and being able to fight for people who don't have that and organizations who don't have that. So with that, I would like to again thank you all for your support and your co-sponsorship and ask for favorable consideration and do pass recommendation for Board Bill 44.
I make a motion that we pass Board Bill 44 with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
It's been moved by Alderman of the 14th, seconded by Alderwoman of the 1st, that we pass Board Bill 44 with a due pass recommendation. And with that, Madam Clerk, may you call the roll?
Alderman Cone. Aye. Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Keys.
Aye.
Vice Chair Sonnier.
Aye.
Alderman Brownie.
Aye.
Alderman Aldridge.
Aye.
Chair ClarkHubbard. Aye. We have 7 aye votes.
Thank you. Congratulations, Alderwoman Clark-Hubbard. You have successfully passed Board Bill 44, and you are recognized to speak to Board Bill 45.
All right, Madam Clerk, can you read the summary for Board Bill 45?
Board Bill 45, introduced by Alderwoman Shameem Clark-Hubbard, co-sponsors President Megan Green. An ordinance requiring certain notices to be sent to relevant registered neighborhood organizations and authorizing additional communication with registered neighborhood organizations and containing the severability clause.
All right, with that, I would, prior to going to this, I would ask that we accept amendment number 1, which I have printed out in front of you, and it's on the agenda. I think this is a good sign that we got this amendment brought to the attention because it's adding one of the notices that we had accidentally left off, and I got this notification from the zoning department who engaged in us to again make sure that we do this and we do this the right way. So in that, this amendment adds the notification of public hearing and conditional use permits. And so with that, I'm asking for you all to accept amendment number 1 to Board Bill 45.
I make a motion we adopt amendment 1 to Board Bill 45.
Second.
And is
Previous row.
Is there any discussion? Does any members have any questions? Okay, great.
All right, so with that, now, Board Bill 45 is amended, the operating and the instructions, right, on making sure that we notify from the different departments, it has the table of notices and the departments are responsible in the code reference. And with that, I'll accept. Oh, I do want to see if Dana wants to add any additional context to this one before we ask questions. Sorry. See if we have any.
I don't have really anything additional to add here. These bills were just broken into two pieces to make it a little easier to digest and keep track of. But the same comments that everyone has made, I think, apply both ways. I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Are there any speakers for Board Bill 45?
Peter Hoffman's on the list.
You're okay? Thank you. We'll assume that your comments roll over. Okay. Is there anyone else, Madam Clerk?
No one has raised their hand so far.
Okay, thank you. Then we will go through the committee in seniority order. Alderman Cone.
No question.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thank you so much. I appreciate this as well. This is really a great thing. Recently, in one of my neighborhoods, there was a conditional use hearing in one of the neighborhoods that I represent, but not within the ward. At that time, the person representing that location didn't send the notice to the neighborhood association. So in this case, because it was a conditional use hearing, if this bill passes, the neighborhood association, regardless of whether there was an older person or anyone else sending a notice, would have received that notice.
Yes.
Okay, that is great, because that caused a lot of controversy and issue, kind of like right outside my ward, that I think people would have liked to see avoided. So I'm glad that would have been a problem that would have been addressed. Then I would also ask, so if one of the things in this bill is that there is no, if they don't send the notice, it doesn't make it so that if a hearing takes place, the result is not valid because a notice wasn't sent. Can you speak a little bit more to that part?
This is one of those things that we get thrown around on the floor a lot. This is our city councilor. This is a covering for the city council in vetting this legislation. That was a necessary piece to add. We do have lawyers in the room that have worked on this and they understand where it comes from. And while we don't foresee that, right? Like here, nobody would pass this and want somebody to not do that.
Right.
And the departments want to engage. Our NSD division wants to engage and everything, but legally, to be able to pass, and I know that's important for many of us down here, is that our bills go through the city council's office and are cleared by them. Then that was the verbiage that was sent over from them. You want to add anything? Okay.
I appreciate that. I do see how that could be a huge issue if there was a mistake or something wasn't sent. I guess the fail-safes in that case are that, hopefully people like us sitting here are still going to let our neighborhood association know.
Still answer the call.
Still ask them, if they got the notice or, that, hey, I just heard about this condition. You hear about it as well. So they're within 5 business days, they're going to send the notice to anyone who either within the neighborhood or within 200 feet of that neighborhood boundary.
To the registered neighborhood organization, and that loop, that boundary covers that neighborhood's boundaries and an additional 200 feet, just in case, because here, if your neighborhood stops and it's right across the street and something's gonna happen to you,
right?
You wanna know, I shouldn't say happen to you, like it's not all bad, but right. If something's gonna go on there, and it's right across the street from you out of respect, then that 200 feet would capture that as well.
And that might be something that an older person wouldn't get. So I have Yeah, because I have one grocery store that might have a conditional use coming up that across the street is not my ward and is not the same neighborhood. So it's an interesting, and I should talk to you about that, I realize. But, that's up to us then to have those extra pieces where that neighborhood association right across the street would be getting this.
Yeah.
So more than they would get from us as kind of human beings just trying to do what we can do best there. Okay, and all of these different agencies would be responsible for sending notice, and they have all agreed.
Respective notice.
Yes.
And we haven't had any negative feedback. In fact, I told you I got the notice from zoning that something was left off. So again, I'm not speaking for any of them, but there's been no pushback because a lot of times they do this themselves, and having this already established, this way will make it where they just know where to go to, who to go to, which to go to for that. And again, even if you're not registered, that doesn't mean you don't get that. And I love that you spoke to the fact that you can turn and talk to Alderman Cone and you all can work together, but we know that in any day that might not be the case, and how unfair to that resident that wouldn't get that. Not you all be the case, but I'm saying as elected officials. I know you all are living under a rainbow over there. You all are best friends. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm just saying, I love the fact that you brought that up, because that's one of the reasons that we feel like this empowerment tool for our residents, they should be able to advocate this way. There should be no gatekeeping on the information notifications happening this way. And whether we're in office or someone else is in his office, this is the responsibility that I think we have to empower them this way.
I mean, you're exactly right. Whether we're in office or not, that's a very good point. I'm thinking right now about, let's say, the 8th Ward, where there isn't an alderperson. Their communities are relying on reaching out to nearby aldermen at this time to help them with issues, which we're doing, but would be a lot simpler for them if they knew that if there's something in front of the planning commission, they're not going to be in a tough spot if their alderman isn't, in office then, or has some other issue that they're not hearing. So I appreciate that, and I thank you for the time.
Thank you. Alderwoman Keys.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Browning.
Thank you. Similarly, in support of this bill, I think what I just discussed with the last bill, and I don't want to make an amendment today, but if you'd be amenable, I'd like to speak with you after this about possibly amending at perfection to make sure that notices go to CIDs and SBDs as well. And I think that could be done with an edit to the bill in section 2. So it's something happy to talk about later. But generally, I'm in support of this because I think notification is important for transparency, and transparency is vital for democracy. I would also just say that I think there is some concern sometimes in notification that we are including one group or over another. And one thing I am concerned about with neighborhood associations is that they do tend to skew more towards homeowners. And there's usually not as many renters who are part of these organizations. So when we get things like proposals for new housing, the reaction sometimes tends to go in the direction of, well, we don't need apartments being built because everyone who's a part of that association already has a home. And we want to make sure that we're not elevating voices that really deny opportunities for others. Of course, notification is not a problem there, right? We want to make sure that it's really up to us, I think the leaders, the representatives, to listen appropriately, to understand that's one perspective, but there may be others, and to balance those. And so I'm just kind of trying to speak to that today to say that at its core, notification is about transparency, and that's why I'm happy to be in support of this. We've all had gas stations or adult shops or other things that have tried to pop up in a neighborhood. Only through the vigilance of the alderperson now that we can defend our communities. And this would really help make sure things don't slip through the cracks, and make sure that we can really improve our neighborhoods, because at the end of the day, these are our communities. We live in a city. Our interactions with our neighbors are part of what makes our community a wonderful place to live. And I know that the neighborhoods that are nice because of the people that are there who care about their community. And that applies to every neighborhood, by the way. Every neighborhood is a nice neighborhood. Because I go through our city and I see the effort people put into their community. And some have more work to do than others, but there are people doing that work. And this is about including them. So thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Aldridge.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. Again, thank you, Alderwoman and the organization for putting this together. Madam Clerk, I would like to be added as a co-sponsor, and I make a motion that we embank Board Bill 45.
So noted.
There's been an objection. Alderman Aldridge, would you like to just add yourself as co-sponsor?
Please add me as a co-sponsor.
So noted.
Could you add me as well?
Alderwoman Keys as well.
So noted.
Thank you, and I don't have any comments. Good work, Alderwoman ClarkHubbard. Good work to all the departments. Thank you all so much who have been here. I know it's been at this point almost a full working day, so we really appreciate your patience for being here today and making sure this work gets done. I'd like to be added as co-sponsor as well, and
so noted.
I'm happy to take a motion on passing Board Bill.
Excuse me, we have a speaker online.
Okay.
Okay.
Chris Peoples, if you could turn your camera on and unmute your microphone.
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you, Mr. Peoples, and do you promise that what you're about to say is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
It is.
Thank you, and your name and ward of residency, you may proceed.
Yes, my name is Chris Peoples, Ward 11. I'm here today on behalf of the Brookline North Community Development Corporation. So first, I would like to thank Alderwoman ClarkHubbard for presenting this bill. To be clear, I'm in support of the bill, so I don't want to belabor the point. I know you guys have been there for a long time, but I just want to do my job as an advocate for the Brookline North CDC, Community Development Corporation, on how we're defining neighborhood organizations and who will get notified. As you know, there's a number of community development corporations, including Tower Grove and DeSales, to name a few, that support and provide capacity to the neighborhood organizations. So I just want to make sure that we're being accountable for all the community-led organizations and that they're being notified with this information. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peoples. And with that, ClarkHubbard, you are recognized to close.
Thank you again. Thank you for all of your feedback, your co-sponsorship, Alderman Browning. I would love to work with you, and then I'm going to directly connect you to the working group that's been doing the work for a while as well. For a while is an understatement, but feeling good today to get into this in this next step. I'm just asking for your favorable consideration and do pass recommendation for Board Bill 45.
I make a motion that we pass Board Bill 45 as amended with a due pass recommendation. Okay. Previous row.
It's been motion made by Alderman Aldridge, second by Alderwoman Keys. A call for previous row with no objections. And with that, Alderwoman ClarkHubbard, you it's Board Bill 45.
Thank you.
It's chilly in here.
Alderman Browning, you're recognized on Board Bill 47.
Thank you. I know we've been here a while today, and so I'll try to be quick. This is free money. This is free money and people. I think we have a presentation. If we could get that on the screen. Again, it'll be quick, I promise. But while we get started here, I'll just read the quick summary here. So Bloomberg American Sustainable Cities is a 3-year initiative to help 25 U.S. We're one of them, representing more than 10 million people to take bold local action to build a cleaner and more resilient and economically thriving communities. So this is a grant that's coming our way, but it's not just a grant. We'll go through real quick what it entails. So as I just said, the first slide there, this is about helping us become more sustainable in multiple ways, and improving air and water quality, as well as preparing for climate change. This particular grant, we could go to the next slide, and then the next slide. So this particular grant addresses this in 4 core ways. It's advancing local solutions. It's increasing capacity through multidisciplinary talent across city departments, and it's strengthening partnerships in the community, as well as sharing what works through highlighting progress. We have this opportunity in front of us because of the hard work through the people in our mayor's office, and I'm not sure if Albert is able to join us right now, but we really appreciate the work that brought us here. And next slide, please. So what I mentioned was this is an exciting opportunity because this isn't just money. This is also bringing a 3-person team to St. Louis that's going to help us with these strategies. Oftentimes in St. Louis, we run into an issue where it's like, great, we have the money to do it, we just don't have the people. And this actually solves that problem for us. So very exciting opportunity that I think will be good for our city in the long term. Next slide, please. So this is just an illustration on how this will work. They will be helping city staff and local groups plan projects. It will build capacity to address needs that are brought up through that engagement, and then support those communities to really tackle these challenges. We know we have no shortage of climate-related issues in this city, and I think as we look towards the future, we're going to need this help, and really excited about the opportunity to move forward with this today. And next slide. And just some more examples of the kinds of things that this will help with. So with that, there's no one in this room anymore, but if there's anyone online, I'm happy to hear from the public, and then big question.
Madam Clerk, are there any speakers signed up for Board Bill 47? All right. Alderman Cone, any questions? Okay. Alderwoman Slicer.
I appreciate the presentation and think this is a great program. I've seen the Bloomberg Philanthropies work really well with their Sustainable Cities Initiative here in St. Louis so far, and I'm glad that we're looking to continue it. So thank you very much. I look forward to supporting this, and I would like to be added as a co-sponsor.
So noted.
Alderwoman Keys.
Thank you. You had me at free money, so please add me as a co-sponsor. Thank you.
I know that's right.
So noted.
Alderman Aldridge.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Glad to see, I know the city has accepted Bloomberg funds in the past. And, you know, my mama say nothing ain't free, so this comes with a cost, but this is a good cost to make sure that we are more green and friendly. So thank you to you and the administration for continuing to keep this one going. And I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor, and I'll make a motion that we Board Bill 47.
It was moved by Alderman Aldridge and seconded by Vice Chair Sonnier that we move Board Bill 47 in bank.
Objection.
Madam Clerk.
I take my objection back. I renege on my objection.
I'm sorry, what was it was called by 14-7. What was the vote? 14?
I made a motion to embank Board Bill 47.
Okay, and who seconded?
Vice Chair Sonnier seconded.
And previous roll was called
Previous
by-
roll by Schweitzer.
Okay, thank you.
There we go.
Vice Chair Sonnier.
I don't have any questions. I think, I'm just glad to see us doing this. A big shout out to the Sustainability Office and the work that they're doing. I think we have a lot more work to do at our city and sustainability. If we were to get a grade, we'd probably get an F at the moment. So I'm glad that we are taking steps to move in that direction.
All right. With that, you're welcome to close.
Thank you. And yes, thank you for shouting out our sustainability office. I want to make sure that we acknowledge the work being done. And it's good that our city is finally tackling these things, even if it's one person in one office. That's a start, right? That's something that gets some things moving in a good direction. And I know that Alisha has definitely been moving things in that direction. So with that, I have nothing else to add. Free money, free people. It's great. I ask for your favorable consideration.
I'd like to make a motion to pass Board Bill 47 with a do pass recommendation.
Previous roll.
It was moved by Vice Chair Sonnier and seconded by Alderman Cone with a call for previous roll by Alderman Aldridge with no objections. Congratulations, Alderman Browning. Board Bill 47. Do we have any resolutions for review?
We have none.
Does anyone have any committee discussion?
We have none.
Madam Clerk, do we have any written testimony?
We have 7 written testimonies supporting Board Bills 44 and 45.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any announcements? Okay. We were all present today, so no need to excuse anyone. So with that, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Cone and seconded by Vice Chair Sonnier with a call for previous roll.